What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I wanted to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. And I'll talk about why this week is going to be massive for Teslas. We have earnings coming out, not to mention new developments in the charts for SPY and the others. But just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Webull link. If you deposit any amount of money, you're guaranteed 12 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 in total. Deposit $25,000 or more and you're guaranteed 75. The offer ends very soon in just about 11 days. Anyways, now let's talk about the market. So as far as Tesla goes, it's been very, very choppy, very flat for the last couple of days, for the last week or so, because of the fact that Tesla's waiting for a very, very big move. So volatility is very slow right now. Tesla's very choppy because it's getting ready for a big spike in volatility. We're going to be looking for IV to start going up. So when IV increases, it's going to cause premiums to increase like crazy this week. That's because we have earnings coming up and we're expecting a very, very big move. Now, that's going to be the biggest factor for Tesla for the short term, and we'll be watching to see what Tesla ends up announcing. So the question is, what's Tesla going to do? I'll talk more about the share price in just a couple of minutes. I first want to go over some data and then Tesla's news. So just for those who are kind of new to the channel, I typically go over what we see for economic calendar. Tomorrow is going to be Monday, October 21st, 2024. For the broader markets, and this could affect Tesla to some extent. That's the reason why it's very important to pay attention to this. Before the market opens, we have Logan giving a speech, which is very minor. Then we have a couple of bill auctions at 11:30, followed by Cash Kari giving a speech at 1 p.m. I do want to call out Cash Kari because he gave a speech. His second to last speech was when he was talking about unemployment, and that caused the market to dip a bit because he said that he was concerned about unemployment increasing sharply because of high interest rates. So, there have been times where he gave a speech and the market dipped. There was another time, and the last time he gave a speech, the market pumped because he was very optimistic about the economy, saying it's very resilient. So, he could be all over the place. Sometimes the market may dip a little bit after he speaks, sometimes it pumps. We'll see what this leads to. So just be mindful of this if you're trading Tesla, if you're trading, other stocks out there. When he gives a speech at 1 p.m., it might cause some volatility. Now, for Tesla, just know we have earnings on Wednesday after the market closes. Whatever Tesla announces is going to be very, very important for the way the share price ends up moving. So make sure you're very, very conscious of that. For Monday, it's going to be very quiet. For Monday, we just have like very minor earnings, like a few banks, then SAP. For Tuesday, we have Verizon, GM, and a couple more. And then on Wednesday in the morning, we have Boeing, AT&T, Coca-Cola, and a few more. Not to mention, after market close on Wednesday, we have IBM and then Tesla. So for Tesla needs to knock things out of the park. They need to give us some very, very good insights. In terms of their deliveries were not bad for Tesla. They had pretty decent deliveries overall. But the question is, how will their earnings end up looking? I think investors are going to be looking at guidance to see what Tesla is going to be projecting, and we're going to be listening to what announcements Elon Musk gives us. If Elon Musk starts talking about how there could be a recession coming, and to be very careful because there were times when he said that, right? Musk was very, very brutally honest in a couple of his earnings reports, and that caused Tesla's stock to start dipping. But if Elon Musk and the Tesla team are the opposite, and instead of talking about the recession, they're more focused on their products, they start hyping up the robotaxi and a bunch of things like that, there is a slight possibility Tesla could try to bounce, try to see some upside if they give us good guidance, good projections, and lots of awesome I would say enthusiasm about their future earnings, their products, and factors like that. So we will see. We'll have to see how things end up going. So make sure you guys are very, very open to how this is like going, and just know that there's going to be a very, very big amount of volatility that comes out very soon. For other factors out there about the markets, right now the market is very, very greedy. Extreme greed makes up the majority of sentiment. And then momentum is also at extreme greed as we're holding above our key 50 daily moving average. So the market's at extreme greed. The put to call option ratio is at extreme greed as well because we're seeing a lot of call buying and lots of puts being closed. So there was a lot of puts that were expiring every Friday, but for a lot of the time, the puts keep on being closed for the last 5 days. They're just closing them, closing them, closing them. And we're starting to see a lot more call buying, which is still pushing the market higher. The VIX remains bearish for now, so we'll see how things end up going. The market's also kind of fixated on a 90% chance we get a 50 basis point cut in November and about a 9.6% chance we get 25 basis points. That's what the market is thinking. We'll see how things go with that, especially as we have Cash Kari's speech tomorrow. But so far, the market's optimistic. Anyways, I'm going to finish off my news section of this video by just talking about Tesla's news. Then I'll break down what happens with the charts. So, as you guys know, There was a big piece of news that came out on, I think it was either Thursday or Friday, that the US probes are opening at a big investigation. uh, I mean, there's a big US probe that's opening about Tesla's FSD. It's basically going to be including about 2.4 million cars after a fatal crash. So this is important news. I went over more details about this in my Friday video, I believe. So if you want more details about this, you guys can check that out. But this was a little bit more negative for Tesla. That's why Tesla was a little bit lackluster on Friday. So this is something that's worth mentioning and might still affect us to some extent. And then there's also some interesting news about the Cybertruck. The backlog is depleted, and now you could order a Cybertruck without a reservation. So very interesting stuff as we're starting to see production increase. Tesla's also planning on ramping up production next year, so it's going to be very interesting to see how that develops. Right now, volume is at 49 million. That's a little bit below average. It's very, very flat, very slow. Short volume is also decreasing, so we're not seeing as many shorts piling into Tesla. They're just waiting to see what their move is going to be. And right now, GLJ research is saying the cellular Tesla shares, they just gave a new rating a couple of days ago, whereas the others are very neutral from Goldman Sachs. The others, they're very, very neutral on Tesla. I also want to mention to everyone that right now, the price price ratio is kind of flat as Tesla's not really doing much. And then we do have a tendency of being green about 53% of the time on Mondays. So that's a good sign. And we tend to see more volatility around 1 p.m. and also around the second to last hour of the day. So, what is my view of Tesla? What do I think is going to happen? Here's my view. So, looking at the charts, Tesla is very choppy right now, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. There's not really a whole lot that's going on for the time being. Like I said before, we've been just consolidating just to see how things end up going because of the fact that there's not really a whole lot that's going on. We're just consolidating. We're waiting for earnings to cause a very, very big move. But because this is earnings week, typically what happens is we start to see volume coming in. And that may lead to some upside for Tesla. I think there's a good chance of that as long as there's no bad news. So if we lose 219, we're looking for 217 as our targets, followed by the lows around that 214 area, which would turn us more bearish. If we're bullish, you want to see this thing basically try to hold above 220. As long as we hold above that, I do think that this will try to get back up to about 222.5 near the 20 EMA and eventually 225. So I think that that's going to be the most likely case. In my opinion, I think there's a good chance that what Tesla's going to do is we consolidate and try to push a little bit higher in the morning and try to get up to 222 to 225 for a little bit of a push. Now, we might not last in these levels. We might just start consolidating again after that, but look for a small amount of upside. I think volume is going to start coming in just temporarily. That's the most likely move for Tesla. As far as SPY goes, we look more bullish technically speaking, but just watch these levels just to be safe. If we lose 582, we're looking for 580 as our target. Then we have this 578 to 579 area. If that area fails us, this is going to be dumping all the way down to 575. If we're bullish, you want to see us break past 586. If that holds, if we manage to hold in the 586s, we're looking for new all-time highs around 587, then 588, and then 590 above that. What do I think this is going to do? Well, notice that we're holding our EMAs very nicely. So I think the odds are favoring upside very, very nicely. So this is going to likely be pushing for 580, just under 587 or so, trying to go to new all time highs. I think that's going to be the most likely case. So watch and see how things end up going. However, just be very, very careful because once we're at these all time highs, as we're at the all time highs, there is going to be a risk of this potentially um, slowing down if we can't break past 587. So I think what's going to happen is we push a little bit higher. But notice how once we hit 585 before we rejected, we hit 585 here, we rejected. So I'm going to try to break the highs around 587 or so, and then this might slow down a little bit as the day goes on. But overall, the chart remains bullish, even if we do see a nice pump in the morning, then a slow down as the day goes on. For ES, we're holding our 20 EMA very nicely. If we were to lose 58.88, we're looking for a dip back down towards these lows at the lower 5800 area. And if we're bullish, you want to see us hold above 5900. If that holds, we're looking for these highs to be retested. My gut tells me the most likely case is we push up to these highs around the 5900s, and we'll see if that breaks or not. But I think we're going to try to push for 5930 and eventually closer to 5940 before we start to see a little bit of a slowdown as the day goes on. We'll look for a little bit more upside on ES and we'll see what the reactions happen to be like. For Nvidia, we look more bullish, but just know one thing about Nvidia: every time we hit 137 to 140, this has rejected at least over the last few months. So that's going to be a very, very tough resistance that Nvidia is at. If you're bullish, you want to see us hold above 138 to hit 140. And if we end up dipping, look for 136 as our support. If 136 fails us, we're at risk of coming all the way down towards this imbalance around 133. My gut tells me we're going to pop a bit closer to 140, then maybe slow down to 136 as the day goes on. So watch and see how this ends up progressing as time goes on. That's going to be very key for us. For Bitcoin, is looking more bullish in my personal opinion. We basically have this support at 68,000. As long as we hold this, we're looking for a push for 69,000. If that breaks, we're looking for a higher potential. If 68,000, however, fails us, we're looking for a dip back down towards 67,500. Because we're holding above our 20 EMA, I think the odds are favoring upside for 69,000 plus. So I think there's a good chance we go up to the 69,000s, and we'll see how things end up progressing from here. But overall, I think there's a good chance for 69,000 plus, and I think that Bitcoin could try to push higher. So watch and see how things end up going. As far as Tesla goes, like I said before, it might try to push a little bit higher, but then be careful as it starts to consolidate. 222.5 to 225 should be tested. It could even try to go a little higher, but then I do anticipate some shop after that. For NQ, as long as we don't lose these key supports, this will try to something very interesting. So I just want to note that if we lose 20,400, we're looking for 20,378. If that fails us, we turn more bearish. If we break out, we need to break past 20,600 to turn more bullish. We had a high here on NQ. We came down, made a lower high, came down, made a lower high. Well, it depends if we make a lower high here or not. So that's going to be a big test tomorrow. So I think it's going to try to push into the 20,500s tomorrow morning. But here's my concern. Do we break 20,600 to turn more bullish, or do we come short and then get another lower high and reject, right? Are we about to try to break this resistance or not as we have lower highs being made? My gut tells me it's going to push a little bit higher in the 20,500 area, but then we'll see if we get a rejection or not. So be very, very careful. Could we make a lower high and remain a little bit more bearish? It's possible. Or are we about to try to break this? You want to be a little bit more careful with the way that this is developing. So watch to see if we make a lower high and reject. That's going to be pivotal for the way that this chart ends up moving. Same thing with the QQQ. If we end up losing 493, we're looking for 490.5. If we break past 497, we turn more bullish. Now we have a high here. We came down, and a lower high came down. My guts tells me this is going to try to push a little bit higher for about 496, and we will see if the QQQ gets a rejection or not. That's going to be very pivotal for the way that this ends up moving. So look for these resistance areas. I think 496 is coming. If we break even higher and we break past this high, we turn bullish for this test of these highs. If we come short of 497, we just go up to 496 and reject. We're going to turn bearish. We're looking for a move back down. That's what my view is of the broader markets. For Apple, just know that historically, every time we hit 237, we have rejected. So be careful at this resistance. So if we break 236, we're bullish. If we reject and we lose 235, we could be dipping back down to this gap fill all the way down to the 232s. So watch and see. My gut tells me we might kind of pop a little bit for like the 235s, and we might see a little bit of a dip afterwards, back down towards 230. 232. So I think Apple may kind of pop a bit then dip as long as we don't break past 237. But if we do break 237, I turn more bullish. I think it's going to just pop and dip and we might be coming down. I also want to call out Netflix. Netflix is looking more bullish. We could be looking for 770 and 775 as our targets. Might go a little bit higher, but just know that it's been pumping so hard after earnings, so it might slow down after that. But look for some more upside, and we'll have to see how things end up going as time goes on. I also want to mention that as far as things end up progressing, we also have CELH coming up. CELH is making lower highs right over here, so it's not looking too bad. I just want to call out that if we end up losing 33.26, we're looking for 32.76 as our next targets. And if we hold above this resistance, we're looking for a push. My guts tells me that 35 is likely going to be our targets likely coming, and we'll see if we reject or not. But for now, we look more bullish, and I think 35 is likely going to be the case. For Palantir, we look more bullish. As long as we don't lose 42, I think this is favoring this imbalance fill for the 43.5 area. So I think the 43s are likely coming, and we'll see if it ends up rejecting or not later on. But look for a little bit more upside initially before we get the next reaction. For Supermicro, we look a little bit more bearish. If we don't break past 47, the odds are favoring 46.6 and eventually 45. So watch those levels very closely. For Rivian, we're just consolidating. We're looking a little bit more bearish. Look for 10 is our support and then 10.2 is our resistance. It's going to likely consolidate in that range for some time until we see a big reaction. It might try to move with Tesla going forward, so be careful at that. SoFi looks a little bit more bullish. As long as you don't lose 9.8, I think this is favoring a push for the 10.4 area. 10.4 is likely coming. We'll see if you reject, so watch that very closely. For the IWM, we have a double top leg structure. If we push for 226 and reject, we're looking for a dip back down towards 224.5. And then I think that the odds are favoring this is going to dip to 224.5, and we'll see if we bounce off that or not. Just know that this has tough resistance at 227. The last time we hit this, we did reject. But don't worry about a small dip because we already pumped so much from 214. We're up 13 points already. So a little bit of a dip is completely normal for a test of 224.5 or below before it tries to bounce again. AMD looks more bearish, but if we reclaim 157, we turn back up. If we can't reclaim 157, we end up losing 155. I turn more bearish. I'm looking for this gap fill all the way down to 150. For ARM, we look more bearish. We're making a lower high compared to this high here. Might pop a little bit for the 154 area, then reject and start dipping to 150. I think that it looks bearish, and I think it's going to make a lower high and continue to fall. Coinbase is looking bullish as of right now, as long as we don't lose 218. As long as 218 fails, if 218 were to fail, we're going back down to 212. As long as 218 holds, I think we could be looking for 222.5 to 225 as our targets. As of right now, coin looks a little bit more bullish as it's pushing with Bitcoin. For Amazon, we have a double top leg structure. Look for 187 as our support, not to mention 186.94. In my personal opinion, we have a lower high that's being made. This might be tipping back down to 187. We'll see if we bounce or not. So give this the time it needs. For Meta has a double top leg structure that's developing. If we don't break past 580, the odds are favoring this tipping back down towards this imbalance, towards 571. So because Amazon has some downside potential, so I said Amazon could be dipping back down towards like 187, right? And then Meta is also showing some potential of dipping back down to about 570. This is a little bit bearish for tech, so just be careful. Microsoft looks like it might try to push for about 420 and then maybe reject. So be mindful of that. Google is also making lower highs. We had a high here, came down, we had a lower high, came down, lower high, came down. If we don't reclaim 165, the odds are favoring kind of pushing. I think it's going to hit the 165, so maybe reject it, but this imbalance will take us down towards 163. So watch and see if that ends up being the case. For DJT, we had a high here, came down, made a lower high, came down. If we end up losing 28.6, I think we might be dipping back down towards 26.5. We'll have to see how things end up going. I think it's going to be hitting 24. What is this? 28.75. Excuse me. 28.75 is likely going to be hit, and we'll see how it reacts to that. For the VIX, we look more bearish for now. Let me just say this about the VIX, okay? The VIX has that gap in the 40s, okay? There's that big gap to fill all the way up. Sorry, there's a gap. There's a gap to fill at 36. Excuse me, guys. 36 is where the gap is, which will take the VIX closer to the 40s if we get that breakout. So the VIX is going to get a big spike eventually. I don't know when it's going to be. It may be in November. It may be early next year, but there's going to be a spike coming as the market gets a rug pull. So there's going to be a big correction coming to the markets. It's coming eventually. Is it going to be approaching the election slash after the election, or is it going to be early next year? I don't know for sure. We'll have to wait and see. But I just want to say the VIX still suggests there's going to be a big spike in volatility, and the market has that downside potential. All right, so that's what I'm seeing. For now, however, there's no sign of the VIX getting that breakout. As of right now, the VIX looks bearish because the market is bullish. So for now, just follow the chart. The chart is bullish for now, and we'll see how things end up going moving forward. For a few more, we have not DJT, the 10-year Treasury yield. This is going to be reacting to what Cash Kari and the Fed have to say, so be very conscious of that. And the dollar remains a little bit more bearish as we're losing our 20 EMA, so we have to give this a little bit more time to develop. So, with that being said, guys, I want to thank you all so much for listening. Right now, the market remains a little bit more um, bearish. I'm sorry, bullish. Excuse me, guys. The market is bullish, but there is some bullish potential for later on. I don't know when we're going to get that corrective phase, if it's going to happen in like November or if it's going to be early next year. So for now, the market's bullish. Tesla might attempt to push a little bit higher because of earnings. At least approaching its earnings, then we'll see what happens afterwards. But for now, make sure you watch these levels and we'll see how well Tesla does. With that being said, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Please enjoy the rest of your day, night, and evening. And I'll be back at least tomorrow morning before the market opens to give you guys another update. All right. So as far as Tesla goes, just know one thing about Tesla. We are, or at least the majority of us, are long-term investors. The short term might not be the best for Tesla stock. If they do get some more downside because of the recession that's coming and all these other factors, it's okay. Because I know that a lot of the things are outside of Tesla's control, such as interest rates and such. I know that Tesla will still make a strong comeback once we start to see a lot of things unfold and a lot of things develop. All right. So, with that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow. Tesla to the moon. The long term is still very bright for the company, no matter what happens for the short term. I'm still very optimistic for the long term. And I'll be back tomorrow for another update. Thank you for listening and peace out.